So in this video today, we are going to use sheets to create a regression line of best fit so that we could put into our lab reports as well. I'm not too concerned about how the charts look here. We're just worried about what the graph is, so I can use that graph or present that graph with the data that we need. And it does the same thing as a Desmos or your calculator does, but this allows you to also print off. And it allows you to actually do a little bit more with the chart. You can add your labels. You can put a title on it. You can do a few other things. Okay, so usually you want to give your chart a name or your spreadsheet a name so you don't lose it within all the other new sheets that you create. Let's just put in our data here that we have. So I'm going to just type in the data that we have from the lab that we just did, the curve lab. So I'm just typing my data in. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's my data. If you wanted to, you could also put a title on these ones here. Again, I'm not concerned about this. I'm not going to print this off, but if you get really good at the formatting of these sheets, you technically just could print these off instead of writing them out by hand. But they have to be really good. They have to have proper titles. They'd be formatted nicely. So you could do that. You can insert a row above here and you could type in some stuff like object centimeters and then image centimeters. So you could put stuff in here. I'm just worried about the data. Okay. So this is the original data. The cool thing about spreadsheets and Excel and sheets here is that we can use formulas to do this. So we can create a little formula. So I'm going to go hit equals, and equals is what let you do with the math that you want to do. So I want to take everything that's in this first column. So I'll just click on the first 90 there because that's in line with it, right? And I want to take that, I want to minus the 10. Remember, everything was 10 off. So once you have the equation in there, you just take this little blue box here, it changes into that nice little icon. You drag it down, and this subtracts 10 from all those. And if I drag it over, it'll subtract 10 from all the second column too. There. If I go too far, it'll give us some kind of undefined things because technically there's like zeros there. So let's just undo that. Okay, you can give those titles too, but I'm not concerned about that. The next part, because the next thing is what we want to graph. I want to graph the reciprocals of these. So I'm going to hit equals. I'm going to go 1 divided by, hit the 8 or the 80 there. So that's the number I want to take the 1 divided by. Hit enter. So there's a number that you should be familiar with. I'm going to drag that down. I'm going to drag that over. So these are all the numbers that we're going to graph here. All right. It's not as nicely formatted as, say, Desmos was, where it said 1 over 80, it just kept as a fraction. But here we go. This is what we want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight this data. If you had titles on it, that'd be great. So maybe a reciprocal, because sometimes programs like this will understand what this first column is. I just put some units in there too. So 1 over centimeters. So there's my first one. And then my second one, the reciprocal of DI, 1 over centimeters as well. Oops. I don't know why I went 1 over column there. All right, 1 over column. Cool. So I got this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that. Okay. And then right here, it says insert chart. I'm sure you can just go over here and as well. So insert chart. So we're going to insert a chart. Okay, if this is your first chart that you inserted before, it'll say, got to use this and some other things too. You can go up here. You can change the title. So you can just click on things here. Get the labels look pretty good. Reciprocal DO on the bottom, reciprocal DI. It's created this nice little chart. It looks pretty good. It's not quite in the way I want to print it off yet. I don't see all those little minor axes, but I'll just go through how to turn those on and what to do to create that line of best fit that we want. So right now my title here, it's typical title. They're just using the typical responding versus manipulated title. That's fine right now. You can put a little bit more detail into that if you want. You can remove the units. Yeah. Let's go over here and change the title. Okay. You can do a lot of different things here under chart and axes on this side over here. If you don't see this chart editor, you can go over here to the little drop down box here and hit edit chart, and this will pop up. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to edit this, and you can also, if you don't want it in this spreadsheet here, you can also hit this and say move to its own sheet. So here's its own sheet. So it gets its own chart. So the data is on one sheet, the chart's on this one. Hit the edit here. Okay, just move my head out of the way so we can do some stuff here. Oh, just one second. Okay, so we are going to add a bunch of features to this chart here. And a couple of features that we're going to add, a line of best fit, right? Because we want that. That's what we want. Now, if your chart doesn't quite look like this because you didn't put titles on there, so I'll just show you what it looks like if you don't put titles on there. So say I just added this part of the data, and that's what I chart or created the chart for. Oops, I don't know what I'm doing there. You might get a chart that has like 2 lines running across it. So what you want to do is, obviously I can't create or recreate that mistake that I usually had. I just think I could. Let me just delete this just one second. Probably can. Okay, so I'm going to take this data and put it right against the top here. Oh, it's not going to work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the top row. Okay, now if I didn't have the top row in there and I just had the data, I think this is where it causes the problem. Yeah, so here's the problem here. It doesn't know what to do with that data because it doesn't think the top should be like the label of this. So what you're going to do is if you get this, you're going to go to column or the chart type here. You're going to scroll down. You're going to hit scatter plot. Again, now you have these 2 lines. And then where it says X axis, there's 2 series here because it has 2 columns, but you notice column G is the first. That's my X. So I'm going to put column G as my X here. Okay. And then down at the series here, I'm just going to remove column G because I'm using that as my X axis. If I remove that, there's my series there, right? If I had that title on the top there, I just kind of messed up this data chart now, so I'm just going to use this. If I had the title at the top there, you'd see that it worked better. So what I'm going to do is going to move this to its own sheet. Here's the chart. I'm going to hit edit. We're going to add a few things to this. Like you notice here, I didn't use titles or labels or anything, so I can customize that. I can go to chart, axes titles. There's a little drop-down box here. I can change a bunch of different things here. Give it its own title. Axes, I can give them titles as well. I'm not too concerned about that. You can add those in if you want to. Other things you may want to add in here before you print them are grid lines. So you want to create some minor grid lines because you can see you got the major ones in there. Not the best for printing off or creating slopes and calculating slopes and stuff. So I like to use 10s most of the time. So you go to vertical and horizontal axes here and add 10 minor grid lines there. You can see they use gray. You can change the colors and stuff here. I'm not too concerned about the major ones because the major ones are usually pretty good on these kind of programs. So now we've got a nice little grid here, so it's a little bit easier to read where these points are. Pretty good so far. Now, one thing about this is that you can see here at the bottom, they kind of squiggle it a little bit where it doesn't go quite to 0. The y-axis is started at 0 for some reason, but the x-axis didn't. So what we're going to do is on the horizontal and x-axis here, you can change the min and max value. So if I go to horizontal, I can change the min to be 0. So that starts now the graph at 0, and then it goes all the way down to the end. You can change the maximum too. In this case, it just goes right to the very last data point, which is okay for us right now. And this looks pretty good. So what we're going to do from here, let me just scroll up, is we're now going to add our line of best fit. So we go to series here. We go down to the bottom of the series drop-down part here where it says trend line. We're going to add a trend line. You change the different types to all different types of trend lines, exponential, polynomial, logarithmic, power series, etc. But we want the linear one. So there's my linear line. Okay, looking pretty good. Now the problem with the linear line is that I don't know what the slope of that linear line is, or plus I can't even see the y-intercept over there. So what you could do on the trend line after all this stuff's done down here is you can show a label. Now, the only reason I want to show the label is so I can copy down the information about this line. So hit that, then it gives us a little label at the top here that tells us what the slope is and what the y-intercept is. It's not as accurate as the other ones. I can't remember if there's a way to possibly change the precision, how many decimal places are to that, but I'm not too concerned about that at this point. You might be. So you may have to search around and see if you can actually create or increase the precision of that data point. Anyway, so once you copy that down, you're just going to remove that label because it's just kind of ugly. It's in the way. So let's get rid of that. Okay. Now, what I want to do now is I want to make sure this graph is usable. So I'm not going to print this off or copy this page off because I want to know where this crosses the y-axis. Sometimes that's more useful. So I'll go to vertical axis, change the max value. Might as well just keep that min value at 0. Change the max value to something a little bit higher than 0.04. So 0.05. There you go. Looking pretty good. Okay. Once you have all that kind of set up, you could print that off. You can download the chart as I think you could download the chart as an image. Yep, you can. As a PDF, whatever you want to do there. You can print that off. You can publish it. You can copy this and put it into a Google document. And it actually, I think it stays live. So if you change it in this sheet, it changes in the Google document as well. Yeah, so there we go. Hopefully that helps you figure out how to use Sheets to create a line of best fit and how to use Sheets to find where it crosses the y-axis. You could just pretty much just read it off here. It's not as cool as Desmos where you can't just click on that spot, but this tells us here the B value and it tells us the slope as well. All right. Hopefully that answers a bunch of questions. You could pretty much do the exact same stuff in Microsoft Excel, but you can find those pretty easily on YouTube. You could find this on YouTube too. It's up to you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.